Hello and welcome to the Wine with Jimmy channel, here with your host, Jimmy Smith. Thank you so much for stopping by to this educational channel all about the world of wine. So here we are offering videos to help you understand certain topics about wine. In this series, we are looking at the WSET, the Wine and Spirit Education Trust Diploma Level 4. So this is quite high in the educational charts. Now, this is actually looking at the wonderful, exciting and emerging wine region called Jura in the French Comté. And here is a list of the mini series we've got ahead with these videos. Now, this video and also part 2 on the growing environment and grape growing is available as free content on here on the world of YouTube. Parts 3, 4, 5 and 6 will only be available on my e-learning portal at www.winewithjimmy.com. So please go and visit there and subscribe if you wish to unlock all the extra content. If you do have any comments or questions or concerns, of course, you can get in touch here, and you can do so by commenting on this video below. Please make sure that you click subscribe as well for our weekly updates here on this channel, and also make sure you click the like button. Every little helps. Also, if you are in the world of social media, like many of us are today, you can get in touch by one of the handles down at the bottom of each slide. Also, the videos that are available on the portal are ad-free and without the long introductions, so they're much more to the point if you wish that way. So let's look at this really fantastic wine region. First of all, before I do, we're going to talk just roughly about what we're doing in this part 1. So we're going to go into an introduction about Jura and then talk around the history of this wonderful wine region. Now, this is all encompassing the syllabus content of the WSET Level 4 with extra bits. I'm adding in what WSET like to call flair. So I add in extra little bits so it really sets the scene for you. Let's move on to our first slide here. The very enigmatic, wonderful writer Andrew Jefford writes about the Jura. If you want a glimpse of what good wine might have tasted like in the time of Shakespeare, look here. And that's because we have, of course, those exquisite wines which are under floor, so under yeast, sous voile, as well as very traditional and oxidative styles of wines in this area. So high quality, different, but perhaps sort of tipping a hat back to the old styles and, of course, going back to Shakespearean time, I suppose. So Jura has recently certainly become quite a buzzword in terms of a wine region. Many wine enthusiasts, many sommeliers, many avid drinkers have actually discovered Jura, especially from wines that are made from the local varieties such as Sauvignon, but also things like Pulsar and also Trousseau. So there's some rather exciting stuff to be found here, but we'll also talk about Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, and some believe that the Chardonnays here are very much easily to compete with Burgundy. The styles that we're going to cover, we'll go through all the main styles, all the main AOCs here, and including the highly distinctive wine style of Vin Jaune. And also we're going to talk a little bit about Vin de Paille, the straw wine. So the yellow wine, Vin Jaune, and the straw wine. Okay, so moving on just around where we find Jura. So here you are in all the departements of France. You'll see that Jura is here. So it's actually in a region called the French Comté, which is, of course, famous for Comté cheese. So Jura sits within it, right on the border of Switzerland, and it has Switzerland to its east, And then it has Burgundy, with places like the Saône and the Côte d'Or to its west, so very close by. It really is only about 0.5% of the landmass of France. It's a very small area. Things like the soil, the geology, the climate, and the weather will be covered in later sessions, but we're just talking about the location here. And with Jura, so here is the red region of Jura. You'll notice that there's Dijon, which is the Côte d'Or, and the Saône just below it. Both of these areas are, of course, Burgundian, and there is a separating plain in the middle. And that is what we call the Bresse Plain, with the Saône River that runs through it. This is the dividing line between the two areas. And this is very famous for chicken. Poulet de Bresse is very famous from this area. So this is what we actually call a graben. So this is where the river has found its way from a depreciation in the geology, in the landscape, and you have uplifts either side. So on our westerly side, we have the Massif Central and the Côte d'Or. And on the eastern side, we have the Alps. Sitting in the middle is where we find the river going through, which is a depreciation, and that's the Saône River here with the Bresse Plain around it. Of course, remember, famous for chicken, among many other things. So a little bit of history around Jura to begin with. So we have evidence that local tribes here, which was called the Sequani tribe, tended to vines here. So Celtic influences tending to vines before the influence of the Romans after they passed through the Alpine passes. So there definitely was tending to vines, and of course then the Romans more commercialized it. We know this because we have found a huge volume of archaeological evidence in areas like Alsace and Germany and Switzerland and Savoie and Jura that has found things like what we believe are pruning shears. So there's collections of them in archaeological digs. So we know that the Romans, of course, cultivated here quite a lot. The Roman Empire collapses, the Western Roman Empire at the end of the 5th century. And then we have, of course, the emergence of religious groups, certainly Benedictine, Cistercian monasteries, abbeys, churches, and cathedrals. So lots of vine plantations start to increase during this time, as wine becomes very important for sacramental purposes, symbolically as the blood of Christ. So, of course, very important in terms of production, but also commercial aspect as well. In the 13th century, this castle you'll see here was also the first picture of the presentation. Jean I de Chalon builds a castle here in the kind of middle to middle southern part of Jura. And today this is called Chateau Chalon, so named after him. It is a little village that sits very proudly on top of a hill, as you can see here, and also gives name to the highest quality and most premium vin jaune, so Chateau Chalon, from the area. So village, castle, and wine style as well, and AOC. So that's just a little bit of important history. Then we have an expansion in this area. So wines were traded by the Dukes of Burgundy in the 14th and 15th centuries. Pope Jean XXII was a fan of the yellow wines from this zone. And then numerous rulers from around Europe, the French, the Burgundians, the Austrians, and the Spanish. And in the 18th to the middle of the 19th century, there was huge expansion in this area, up to around 20,000 hectares of vines, 10 times larger than it is today. And that's because this had quite good markets, local markets, but also markets into areas in more central land areas. So today, what we would call Switzerland, Italy, and it had good markets. However, a series of problems then followed from the middle of the 19th century onwards. So here you are. So 1850 to pretty much the middle of the 20th century. So we have the emergence of railways, and the railways connecting cities like Marseille to Avignon, Avignon to Lyon, Lyon up to Dijon, Dijon up to Paris, And of course, this meant that there was easier transport links between the north and south, and the much more cheaper southern wines started to flood across most of the French markets, which meant that local markets such as Jura, Savoie, Loire, Alsace started to struggle because they had competition. Beer also started to emerge quite a lot around this time, more competition, and then loads of problems in the vineyards. So mildew, Franco-Prussian wars, so social economic issues which would cause problems in frontier zones like Jura. Phylloxera arrives in 1879, then more mildews and black rot. Depression and tax strikes, First World War, Second World War. So basically, this 100-year or century of setbacks meant that the vineyard area decreases from 20,000 hectares down to a measly 2,000 hectares, with some emerging numbers coming out today, but at a small scale. So big reduction due to that. Also really want to mention a very famous person in the world of Jura. And there's quite a few famous people from Jura actually in the world of wine, but this is the important one. Now, this is Louis Pasteur in the 19th century, called the Star of Arbois. And every wine region really gives thanks to Louis Pasteur, and indeed the world, for vaccines, for example, against rabies. With the help of Napoleon III, he established a research laboratory in Arbois, which is the kind of cultural capital of Jura. And he investigated problems with wine. Locals used to peer into his laboratory in Arbois and say that it looked like something out of Nostradamus. And in fact, he became so well known, Louis Pasteur, he had become as popular as the president of the United States, which is quite crazy. He helped understand the positive role of oxygen that it could play in fermentation, because before then it was seen as the enemy. He also understood around things like microbes and yeast, that yeast would be the real actioning agent to ferment sugars. So very important. He also, of course, his name really gives way to pasteurization, which is, of course, very important in killing bacterial microbes by raising the liquid up to around 60 degrees Celsius, not only with wine, of course, but other agricultural produce as well. So, yeah, very famous. There's also Alexis Millerade as well, is important in terms of rootstock grafting around phylloxera, is also from Jura as well. So there you are in terms of some history and an important figure there. Jura coming into the modern industry after the Second World War has been kind of a sleeping production, really not much going on, but it's really starting to emerge in the last 20 to 30 years or so. Some wonderful books being written. Wink Lorch does a wonderful book on the wines of Jura. And we're starting to, of course, to really investigate both the traditional styles, which we'll talk through in later presentations, but also more modern styles being produced in this small but quite desirable wine region. So please do join me for the next video, because we have done the introduction and the history. Part 2, which is going to be available as free content as well here on the World of YouTube, we'll be looking at the growing environment and grape growing. Parts 3 to 6 only available on my e-learning portal. Thank you so much for stopping by. Once again, if you have any comments, questions or concerns, please do pop it in the comments section below this video, or get in touch by the social media. And as always, if you do find yourself in London town here in the United Kingdom, then come and see me at one of my establishments. Come and see me for a class, a glass, or a bottle. I've been Jimmy Smith. Thank you so much. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.